welcome everyone. Come on in. This is Tac-O-Bout gear on Tuesdays. We did have didn't take the best ground meat. I had some shrimp that was thawed out in the fridge, so my wife made some shrimp. You know, some shrimp and sausage all wrapped in a tortilla. I just call them stuff thrown into a tortilla, smashed together. So yeah. I was listening to my the volumes of my tones here. And they are pretty good. Well, Rick clean, it didn't sound as loud, so I need to adjust it. You can't hear your voice. Why not? Check 1, 2. My volume is up. Is working but too low. Check, check. It's pretty loud on the sound levels here. Just to give you a heads up of what I'm using, let's see, here's the console settings. I have the monitor left and right for, say, set to inputs 1 and 2. And then everything else is cascading down from that. So essentially, whatever my fader levels are here on console, that's how loud you should be hearing everything. It's not. I don't have a clue. Anyway, so tonight we're going to talk about the Fractal M9, or just really any Fractal products. Kind of talk about my journey into the Fractal world, as many of you know. Can't hear a word you're saying. How is the music still playing. All right, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? You would think that with the fader of the computer down, you wouldn't be hearing any music at all. But sorry about that. That's not what I was hearing in my headphones. Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. My headphones are hearing what the main mix is hearing. And if the fader's all the way down in console, then you shouldn't be hearing any music on your end at all. At all. Unless it was coming out as totally separate output. But that doesn't make any sense. How about my guitar? That's really baffling and embarrassing. All right. Anyway, I was like, you can't hear a word you're saying. I was like, I can hear everything I'm saying, but somehow you were hearing music when I wasn't. The music was drowning your voice out, but I had the fader down on console. So I don't know how it was getting to the live stream. That just makes no sense. It makes zero sense. All right, let me play it now. Let me play it again. Now, the fader is down. And as I bring up the computer fader, I should be hearing exactly what you're hearing. Exactly. But anyway, I will turn that off. All right, let's talk about some Fractal stuff, shall we? So to answer Andrew's question, this is not the Kiesel that I have on order, but this was a Kiesel that was a deal of the live, or some kind of deal they had during their Wednesday live streams. And I really liked the classic. They call this the retro solo, but it's a classic telly body, but it has some modern appointments to it. So it's got the Wilkinson ashtray with adjustable saddles. It's got Seymour Duncan antiquity pickups in there. This does have a three-way switch. I thought it was coming with a five-way, but that only is available when you have humbuckers that you can actually switch between the different inside and outside coils. So this has a traditional three-way switch, which is fine, a volume and a tone. You plug your guitar in right there. This is a mahogany body. It's a two-piece body. And they did a good job at matching the seam down the middle. There are some knots in the wood here and there, which I would have thought, I mean, with me working at Gibson as long as I did, we never had a knot in a piece of wood that had a natural finish. Anything that had knots was always colored a solid color, like white, black, you know, blue, yellow, you know, whatever solid color it is to cover up the imperfections. But anything that had a clear coat back on it or a natural back did not have any knots, or at least we tried 99% of the time to not have any knots. So the fact that this has some knots, I don't know if that's just laziness or if they just didn't care. I mean, obviously they care about their work, but you know, 1, 2, 3 knots that I can see. Yeah, I mean, I don't care. It's not a big deal to me. This is a roasted maple neck. Very, very smooth. You can see that on my live stream last week about the unboxing of this guitar. So yeah, it is roasted maple. It's a 10-inch fretboard. Usually I play on 12s, but 10 inches I haven't really noticed a huge difference. So that's the bridge pickup, middle, and neck. So it sounds good. I've only had to tune it literally like maybe a few times. It stays in tune very, very well. Very, very well. So Rob is asking, am I still a head rush guy? Yes, I do. I do head rush every day. I like it a lot for most of what I do. But in the last year, see, this is part of my journey here. In the last year, I still own a Kemper stage, which is right over here, which I'm currently working on selling that, just because it's very hard. I like some of the things about the Kemper. I like pretty much everything about the Fractal. Other than there is a small learning curve you have to consider, and you know, stuff like that. And I bought and sold a Helix. I basically had a Helix for a few months, maybe about 5 or 6 months. And you know, I've owned multiple other Line 6 products over the years, starting way back from the green DL4 delay pedal. I owned all the Line 6 M series. Sorry, I can't think of the term. It was the M series. So the M9, M5, M9, M13. Then I saw that the HX Effects came out right before I bought my first head rush. And the HX Effects pretty much replaced my whole entire analog board. That included a switcher and multiple pedals and all kinds of stuff. And so it was a good purchase because, you know, HX Effects was like $400 or $500, and that board easily was over like 2,000. So, you know, get rid of all that, just buy HX Effects and be done. But I still own some pedals. Excuse me, that burrito's burping up. That's gross. I'm sorry. I've owned multiple pedals since then. Just because I still like a few pedals, and because they're fun, and I like to turn knobs. But digital is definitely reigns king among convenience and minimal setup time when you're wanting to just walk into a gig and just plop down a digital board, and there's all your presets ready to go. Your sound is very consistent from night to night, so you never have to worry about you know, your sound changing because your amp knobs moved or your pedal knobs moved, and having to keep track of all that. So yeah, with all that said, I'm still very much a head rush guy. Space Folks says, just got the Prime a few weeks ago and I dig it. I do not have the Prime yet. Maybe in the near future I can look into getting something like that. But as of right now, I mean, after owning the Kemper stage for about 8 months or so, it's kind of that I'm torn between, do I like amp modeling or do I like the capture profiling cloning process? And which one sounds better? Do you like having to set different settings on your amp and then taking a new profile of that every time you want a different sound? Versus just having one amp model and being able to tweak it all you want and storing those as different settings per preset and whatever else. There's also the Quad Cortex that I've owned. I got that late last year, and I sold it around January, I think, right before the. I got on the Fractal waiting list back in like November or maybe December, and I got the FM9 sometime in February. So I've owned it just a few months now. But I didn't feel like the QC. I like the QC. I like the touchscreen of it and all those aspects. But being able to play it live or just at church in general, which is where I mainly play nowadays. I don't play in a band or I don't have a bar gig or club dates or anything like that. The switches were way too close together for me. So therefore, if I wasn't going to use it live and only in the studio, I didn't see it make a lot of sense to have a $1,600 paperweight on my desk, just sitting there waiting for me to only use it for recording and not playing it with it on the floor and being able to use my feet to stomp, hit the switches and turn on different presets and stomps and whatever else. And plus there's just some workflow things that's not quite there yet. And it will definitely get there, I'm sure, in the not too distant future. They'll have a proper hybrid mode to where you can make any switch do whatever you want. And that kind of leads me into, people have been saying for a very long time that the Fractal is the king, top of the heap when it comes to all the digital modelers out there. And I can honestly say, it is really, really, really good. It is a nice unit, and I have no hesitations on saying how nice it is. Let me plug in the the editor here. Okay. And this kind of leads me to. Some points I want to make about why the Fractal is kind of like the all-around king of maulers. Monobashi Dan. I have not tried the Tone X or the NAMM plugin, but I own plenty of other plugins, and they are, they sound good. They do sound good. So here's the FM9 edit. Whoa, weird. Look at that. I don't know why it's doubled like that. That looks weird. What if I made that smaller? Oh, I don't know. I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe move this up. No. I'm fine with all that. So one, we do have an editor. Now, in the case of Headrush and Quad Cortex, they both have a touchscreen, which is basically like a big iPad on the device itself. And for a lot of people, well, I know there's still many people out there that are very vocal about how the headrush and the quad cortex, which I think now the QC is getting a computer editor. Um, but really, there's still a lot of people out there that say, and I'm kind of in this boat as well. If it has a touchscreen and you do most of your editing on a desk of some sort, then, like I do, because I'm mainly a studio guy and I don't need to use my feet to switch between different presets when I'm recording, because I don't need to quickly change from one preset to the next when I'm recording. I can just hit a preset or a scene, do my playing, stop recording, go to the next preset or scene, or kick on whatever pedal I need for the next part, and then I'm recording the next part. So most of these devices can just live right here on my desk, or in the Fractal's case is over here on my right, sitting on top of my rack that has my power supply and Apollo X8, 2 units of 8-channel ADAT inputs, or mic pre's, and then I have my headphone amp down here. So it's a very simple rack, because I don't need tons and tons of channels here in the studio, but it's nice having that flexibility to add more channels when you need to. So yeah, the Fractal FM9 just sits perfectly across a 20-inch rack over here. And if I wanted to, I could just have a foot pedal on the floor if I need to do some wall stuff or any kind of expression pedal things. Then I have the FM9 Edit, which is here on the screen, that I can also use for different stuff. So I have learned to do all my editing on the unit itself, but that doesn't mean that the editor isn't nice. It definitely is nice. So there's really no cons to not having. There's no cons in having an editor. So if you can add one, headrush or quad cortex, then I say go for it. I think a lot of your users want that, and it would help in certain kinds of workflows to have that option. So having an editor is pretty cool. Helixes have had an editor for a very long time, the HX Edit, and you can edit your Stomps, your Stomp XLs, your Helix LTs, your Helix floors, your Helix rack mount unit. You can do all your editing in one editor, which is really cool. Dan is saying headrush's biggest mistake, in my honest opinion. Yep. I mean, I really hate that headrush kind of gets put on the bottom of the barrel a lot of times in these shootouts, because they do have, headrush provides a very good sound. The amps sound really good. The effects are not as vast as Helix and Fractal and even the Kemper. The Quad Cortex still has some things to catch up on as far as reverbs, like really good ethereal reverbs and all the cool stuff. And that's one thing I'm going to show you tonight here on the FM9 is some other reverb options, which we can get into very shortly. But yeah. So overall amount of amps. Let's talk about amps for a minute. Really, if you look at the list of Fractal amps, is not as many as you think there are. It's just the fact that they have, Mesa Boogie, dual rec, but then you have like all the channels for that amp. Then you might have a Saldano and all the channels for that amp, and so forth. So it's really probably 2/3 smaller than you think it is. It's just they have all the different amp channels available as separate amp options. So just for instance, if I go in here and I say I want to, excuse me, I'm so rude. I'm going to save this preset to a new number. I'm going to put it down here on a save. We're going to hit yes. And I could easily do this right on the unit, but it is very convenient. So this is going to be Livestream preset. So there we go. Yes, let's go over to let's go to clean here. And I know I'm basically using a multiplexer, which is a block that tells each one of these rows to turn on whatever effect is on that row. So if you look at here, we have all these different channels. And channel A is row 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. And then channel B is row 3. Now, channel C can be something else, but if I try to put something on channel 2 here, I can only add 2 amp blocks, so that's not going to help me out there. I feel like Leon Todd just has a blank block right there, and he uses that for his super crystallized, clean type sound, which I'm not a super fan of. I like having some kind of preamp option there. But yeah, anyway, so there is that option. But on this amp on row 3, I have essentially my clean sounds. And just look at all these different amps we have available. All kinds of stuff. So we have 302 amp presets. The Wrecker, like the Trainer X stuff. Orange, ODS, which is a Dumble type stuff. Plexis, Mesa Boogie, Rectos, Princetons, Splons, which is really cool amps. The USA 2C Plus, which is your Mesa Boogie, 2C. Here's the John Petrucci stuff, which I know the Quad Cortex just came out a few months ago with the John Petrucci amp model. But this sounds good too. This sounds really good. So just for instance, if I went to that, what's going on here? I need to be on channel B, which gives me a row 3. And let me turn off this reverb here. Now, I don't have a Quad Cortex here with me, so I can't directly compare or A/B that sound. But I did do a profile of that sound before I sold the QC in the Kemper. So I guess I could always compare the Kemper version to the Fractal model. But even some people say that the Kemper is not... I mean, we're really splitting hairs here, but some people say that the Kemper profiling process is not as good as Tonex and or Quad Cortex, which I haven't used the Tonex yet and don't plan to, because that's just another $500 into a piece of gear that I just don't know what to do with. I like having all the different effects available in one unit, and the Tonex only has reverb and some compression, but you can't really do anything else with that other than just host you know, captures or whatever they want to call them. So Aaron Short is here in the house, and Kiyoki says aloha. I just saw Ian Tongi won American Idol this past Sunday, and he's a native of Hawaii. I think he's been living in Seattle for a few years, but he originally came from Hawaii. You can tell he's Hawaiian through and through for sure. That's kind of cool. Dan is saying he has the MX5 and like it, but the editor would make a lot of people happy. A lot. That's one thing. If I can say anything about the Headrush MX5, is they have a 5-inch touchscreen versus a 7, and that maybe it's a 4-inch touchscreen, whatever it is. It's smaller than the other two, and even the Prime. I do have to push multiple times on the screen to get what I want, or maybe just not push as hard. You really have to be delicate and be very accurate where you're touching on the MX5 screen to do some basic stuff, which, you know, if you use it a lot, you can get used to it. But even the HX Stomp has an editor, and I think anybody that has an MX5 from Headrush would definitely benefit from having a desktop editor to do all their stuff on, so they can just kind of keep the unit off to the side or maybe at their feet, and then do all the editing, and maybe move around presets and make set lists and do all that stuff. And then they can unplug it from the computer, go out to the gig, and just have all their rigs in the set list that they need to play their show or whatever they're doing. So, representing Hawaii. Yes. Pretty cool stuff. Aaron Short had a fun live stream yesterday talking about guitar setups and how to set up your guitar. I know this is supposed to be a Fractal live stream, but just a detour for a second. This is my tool that I use to help set up stuff. So this is 30 seconds on one side and millimeters on the other. So I basically go to the 17th fret, look at there, and if it's around 2.5, 2 to 3, 2 to 2.5 to 3 30 seconds in height, I know I have a pretty good setup, and I'm able to get under the strings. When I first unboxed this guitar, it was definitely very low in action. But yeah, let's keep flying through some of these amps here. We got like a Legend 100. I mean, I don't even know what this is, but and I feel like my guitar is a little low in the mix. Bring that back up to 0 here. Okay, pretty cool. Let's go with a divided by 13. I mean, we got all kinds of options here. That can be a cool clean tone if I back off the gain. Very nice. Okay, I feel like that's good. I actually like that sound, and I'm going to store that on channel A. So that's on the bridge pickup. If I move it over to the neck, now, ideal means they give you the whole kit and caboodle. They give you a bass, middle, treble, high cut. All kinds of different options here. A master volume. You can do a cut and a fat and a bright switch and all kinds of stuff. Power amp, preamp, input EQ. This is really cool too. So you can take out some of that low end before it hits the gain stage. And it essentially helps you kind of sculpt the sound a little bit. So I'm going to cut that pretty well. Then I'm going to change the definition so it has a little bump in the low end. Yeah, pretty neat. So all kinds of different options there to really dive in and shape the sound however you want. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. You can change power tubes, speaker supply, sag, speaker type stuff, like the low frequency resonance. So the amount of depth that you have on this unit is really just insane. And that is why the price is up there. You can't do this on the Quad Cortex or the Kemper or anything else. What some people like, those people want more. You know, you can't do this on the Headrush. You can't go in and shape the sound that much. You just have to kind of work off of the models they give you and get the best sound that you can. So that's cool because now with that somewhat clean, but also a little bit of hair on it, I can kick in an overdrive. And this overdrive is the Timmy up. I have different channels here with the Timmy mid and Timmy down. So I can choose those channels within the different scenes of the Fractal. And if you've ever seen a Timmy, see, once again, I'm going to do this pre-graphic EQ. I'm going to take out some lows. Just thin it out on the bottom end just a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Tone. I can adjust bass, I can adjust mids, mid frequency, so I can make it more like Tube Screamer-ish or something maybe. Yeah. All kinds of options there. So that's with the drive block. So I like that divided by 13. But just for fun, let's go look at the low version, see what that does. So a little cleaner versus the high. And that's actually very sparkly, maybe too sparkly. That's what this one. A CJ boost. Yeah, there's just all kinds of options here. All right, so you can see me just kind of kicking in that overdrive. Lots of different compression options, analog, Dynacomps, JFETs, opticals, studio options, tube compressors. What's cool about the compression is this: when you play over here in this area where the gain is, you can see that there. You can see the gain reduction. And I know Helix added that in a recent update in the last year or so. You can actually see the compressor working and know how much you're compressing. With the head rush, I just kind of use my ear to gauge how much I'm compressing, but it would be really nice, head rush, if you added some kind of gain reduction feature, like a little meter or something somewhere, so we know how much compression we're adding. And also a huge request I've had over the years for head rush is to have a mix knob literally on everything. I just don't see. I know you're trying to be really authentic to the original, but in a digital world, it's just so convenient to have a mix knob here. So if I want to have a full compression, I can do that. If I want to really spank it, and then maybe set the mix to 50%. Now I'm getting that parallel compression kind of thing to where you're hearing the transient really well poke through, but the body of the sound is getting compressed. Yeah, so I think that would be very cool if that happened. Pete Smith says, I've owned or used most of the Maulers and profiles, and since the 11 rack was released 13 years ago, the Axe 3 Turbo is the best of the bunch, in my opinion. Yeah. For a very small, fleeting 24 to 48 hours, I was considering selling the FM9 because this guitar was, it was not cheap. And I have other guitars I'm trying to sell, like my Les Paul and some other stuff, which the guy who wants to buy it is kind of dragging his feet. But hey, whatever. If he wants to buy it, it's fine. If not, I'll find somebody else. But the FM9, I will never find another unit that has the depth that this has. So therefore, it's staying. I'm keeping the FM9. But within those few wee hours of considering I was going to sell it, a guy from Laverne just up the road messaged me and said, "Hey, I'll trade you the rack unit plus some cash." I was like, "Yeah, it's very tempting, but I'm kind of full on my rack space over here." And then I would just have to get some kind of like FC12 foot controller or an FC6 foot controller to control things on the floor when I want to play. And I just didn't like that. I like having the FM9 be all in one and not have to piece together different gear with cables and whatever else. Yeah, it just didn't make a lot of sense. So sorry to say, Doc, but requests, suggestions to headrush seems to fall on deaf ears these days. Well, I've been suggesting these. I've been having suggestions for at least 5 years now, and they either do them or they don't. But I think with the Prime, they definitely they were entering into a very vast market with those new features of cloning and auto tune and different stuff. So. And at the end of the day, I mean, you can't be everything to everybody. If you wanted the headrush to be the end-all be-all Mauler, well, the Fractal is already way ahead of everybody, right? Everyone's just trying to catch up to Fractal, I think. And I'm not saying that just because I have one now. I mean, Fractal is very well renowned for a reason, and this thing just sounds really good. And as I've already shown you a little bit here with the tweaking and all that stuff, you can even do sidechain compression, which is nuts. Let's see what's happening here. So sidechain compression says that you can apply different. So there's an emphasis knob, just like on the old Mixbus 32C. So the emphasis knob is basically saying, hey, we're going to push more of this frequency into the compression. So that way it compresses that range more than all the other ranges. Which is kind of neat. Filter type. Notch. It's kind of cool. I haven't messed with that a whole lot. But it is kind of neat. Okay. Anyway. What else we got? We have a very customizable signal path on the Fractal. Head rush, added a few more things in the prime. That you can have a little more flexibility in routing and stuff, but it's still very limited on what you can do. You can basically just go in a straight line, from your input all the way around to the output. And you got 14 blocks now instead of 11, which is cool. This has 14 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah. 14 rows and 6 columns. Well, sorry, 14 columns and 6 rows. And you can I could add a block all the way up here. I could move one all the way down there. And then just connect them all with cables, right? I can do like this kind of stuff if I wanted to. Then I could pull this back up here. Let's actually move it way over here. Actually, I can't do that. I can go here though. Right? So now I can put in like let's put in a flanger. Turn the mix all the way up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. 0 through flanger. See what other kind of flanger stuff we got. Starship. I had the stereo, the Mistress. Electric Mistress. That's what it is. So that's in parallel right now versus having it be in line. And I can take that out. I can take that out. So now I got the flanger in line, and it's back to 50% mix. Cool. Let me bypass that. Let's see here. The several delays reverbs are consuming CPU for being in the rig. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. So, for any fractal preset, you're kind of limited to, I think, 80% is where it starts getting into the red, and you really don't want to go past that. So yes, any kind of reverb that you choose, let's go in and look at some reverbs here. Let's see which one has. See if the CPU is at 68%. It's kind of staying around in that area. It's not going above that. I think we're good. So we're able to, it's kind of optimized to have 2 reverb blocks, 2 different delays, 2 amps, stuff like that. And there's multiple channels per reverb block, but when you switch from channel A to channel B, it's going to cut off the sound of one and go into the other. That's why when I did have the Fractal AX8 for a little bit, probably just a few months, and what I found was you only could have 1 reverb block, but you could switch between 2 different reverb types within a preset. But when you move from one to the next, it cut off the first one to make room for the next one. It's just, I didn't like it. I don't like reverb tails or any kind of tails of wet effects being cut off when you go to the next one. So having 2 different reverbs allows me to have a longer, more lush reverb, and then have an always on room reverb, which is like a sum plate. For instance, you can hear that now. But I could easily go in here and choose a reverb or spring, for instance. And I did read earlier that if you have a reverb, it's best to put it right before the amp, a spring reverb. Because that's usually a spring reverb, like a Twin or a Princeton, is usually before the power amp section. So it makes more sense to have the reverb before the amp. It does sound really good. I'll turn the mix down just a smidge. But the problem with that is when I switch over to a dirty amp, let me save this real fast on the clean channel. So here's my dirty amp. Right, now that reverb is going into, I'm going to ignore the scene and then bypass that flange. The reverb is going into a dirty amp and is getting basically overdriven, and I don't like that sound. So you can have, I could, if I wanted to, I could have the reverb before the amp, but turn it off on that preset. So then when I go to clean, it's on, that one is on, but that one's going to be off. And this one needs to be off. Yeah, that works. And then go back to clean. So we got that nice spring reverb going before the amp. And that time is at 3 seconds. I mean, that's a lot. I told myself I was going to go live for about an hour, and I've gone live for about an hour. I want to get back to the Celtics game and see who's winning there. I was glad the Nuggets were able to sweep the Lakers. They are out. I'm pretty sure the Heat is going to win this game. So therefore, the Heat and the Nuggets are going to be in the NBA Finals, which will be fun to watch. Kyoki says he maxed out the Prime today while I was trying to something A/B test, couple clones. This is the first of my headrush pedals. Yeah. I guess my question is, CPU is reserved when you put an effect on the rig. Either it's on or off. Yeah. DJ Farms gave a super chat. Thank you very much. Says, happy day, Doc. I do appreciate that. Thanks for the super chat. Kyoki is out. Thanks for stopping by. So as far as reverb, so is any effect, as long as you have it in a block, it's going to take up CPU no matter what you do. Even if you bypass it, it still needs to be ready to go. It's kind of waiting in the wings, waiting for you to turn it on. So therefore, it wouldn't make sense to have tons of stuff in your rig or preset and have it be off in hopes to free up CPU. But then when you turn them all on, your CPU is going to overload and it's going to just crap out. So I don't think it would be a good idea to, it would not be a good idea to, no manufacturer is going to do it that way, because you need to take into account the CPU that will be used if and when that block was engaged. So essentially, just by putting it in the preset or the rig, just by adding it in there, they are allocating that CPU for when you do turn it on. Now, as far as reverbs go, I'm pretty sure that the Fractal reverb has its own CPU chip for its own processing. I believe we look under advanced here. There's an early level, early diffusion, mic spacing, somewhere in here. So there's an EQ, which is neat. We can cut the highs out of that, maybe cut the lows. Mod ducker, a pitch shift. Ooh, a pitch shift. Hello. Wah, wah, wah. Okay. I'm not sure what I just did, but that was weird. Here it is, the quality. So I can have it on ultra high. And that makes the quality of the reverb better. But you can see by my CPU, it's still staying at 68.5. And then you really just have to use your ears at that point. Like, we can put it on economy. And I don't hear a quality difference, so it doesn't matter to me. But DJ says FM9 has 4 cores, one for reverb, one for delay, one for amps, and one for everything else. IRs run on a special something. Shows the general core. Yeah, I think so. That's very possible. That makes sense because when I change reverbs, it's not, the CPU doesn't go up drastically or anything. There's a South Church. Just very, very high quality reverbs. And that's not saying that the headrush does not have high quality reverbs. It does. But when you have stuff like this, it takes reverbs to another level that you can't get on the headrush. And since I like doing ambient, churchy type stuff, it's cool having those extra options. I can get some cool ethereal stuff on the headrush, but it takes a little bit more work. I kind of have to combine the shimmer with the party verb and the, mod verb or whatever else is called, and yeah. So I like all the movement that's there. I'm going to do a separate video very soon comparing the Fractal reverbs to the headrush reverbs. And you'll see real fast that though the headrush reverbs are really good, they're lacking some depth that some other units have. Yeah, stuff like that. So that sounds good. We'll turn that off. And it's still going. Still going. Let's turn on the delay. We have all kinds of delays here we can choose from. Ping pong, stereo, bucket brigades, sweep delays, wandering delays. Let's see what that one is. I can tap in my tempo. Okay. Now with delays, I don't get too crazy. I like, analog stuff. And I can adjust those however I want. Dual delays. I can set one to eighth and one to quarters. Now here's a little mindset that I can have, especially when it comes to owning, multiple pieces of gear. So the Fractal is definitely something where I would just set it up. If I showed up to a gig and somebody else needed to use the FM9, for instance, I would just have it to where my scenes are very clearly laid out. So they would have, hey, I can just show them in like 10 seconds. Here's your clean sound. Here's your rhythm. Here's your lead. We got some ambient stuff over here. And they're like, okay, cool. I can work with that. Right. Same goes for the headrush. I can make a set list with certain number of rigs in there and just assign those to the switches. Keep it in rig view instead of stomp view, which is a headrush ism, and basically give it to anybody and say, here you go. Here's the tones that you can use for your blues jam or your rock gig or whatever you want. But on the other end, if I gave my 7-year-old the head rush, they could figure out how to build a rig very quickly with no manual at all. Okay. If I try to give my 7-year-old the FM9, they wouldn't know the first thing because they don't know this whole concept of adding a block, creating shunts, adding a cable from between one block to the next, this kind of stuff, especially if you just try to do it all on the unit itself and not in the editor. There's just no way. I mean, they don't even know how to use a mouse yet, really. So clicking around and right clicking, it's not going to be possible for them to do. So that gives most people out there that want something just really, really dead simple, then get a head rush. Because if you can use a touchscreen on your phone or an iPad or tablet, Android or whatever it is, who cares if the reverbs aren't quite up to par? I mean, you're still going to get some great reverbs in there. You're going to get some great sounding delays. All the modulation stuff is excellent. You got clean amps, you got overdriven amps, plenty of IRs that come stock in the unit. If you want to use stock cabs, you can do that too. Those still sound really good. Head rush has been my bread and butter for, better part of 5 years now. And if I can create sounds pretty fast that I can play at church and go play at live gigs, which I've done in the past, then anybody can do it, right? But the reason why you buy a Fractal is maybe you have a little bit more money and you just want that Lamborghini type car. Okay. I really hate these analogies because I'm not a car person at all. But the head rush and even the Helix, I could probably put into these categories, is, they're your tried and true, your Nissans, your Hyundais, your Toyota type cars. They get you from A to B with great gas mileage. They also look really good. Everything, the seats are comfortable, right? And that is perfectly fine for the vast majority of people out there. But if you can't afford a Lamborghini or a Jaguar, right? Really some high-end car that takes comfort and usability and the user experience just to that next level, then that's why you buy a Fractal. Not only because, Neil Sean of Journey uses one, and Bush, there's some videos on Gavin Rosdale showing how he uses the FM9 for their live gigs. Just tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of people out there are using Fractal, and for a good reason. They do it for the flexibility. On a Fractal unit, you can make any switch be whatever you want. You can have the tap tempo or the tuner be wherever you want on the switches. You have hold functions. You have seamless switching, mainly due to this multiplexer, but there's other ways to do it as well. So I'm on the clean channel right now. Right? Those sounds are not balanced at all, but you can kind of hear that there is a very smooth transition from clean to overdrive and back and forth. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's just really, really good. DJ says the scribble strips help a lot on both Fractal and head rush. Yes, they do. Scribble strips are very convenient. I have gigged them all. Nobody in the audience knows or cares other than a small majority of guitarists. That is an argument I see often. But I think it really does come down to the audience doesn't care. But if you feel like you sound better, then you'll be more inspired to play better. Okay. And I think there is a certain level of musician that they kind of get past the vanity part of, oh, I can't use this really old Helix kidney bean or Line 6 kidney bean amp modeler because that's not cool, right? I have to own a Fractal in order for me to be cool. But Pete Anderson, which I have his, he played for Dwight Yoakam and all kinds of other people. That's what he used. He used a Line 6 kidney bean um, amp modeler, going through a power amp, and then going through two speaker cabs. And that was his live setup. He just really enjoys that model of like whatever the Fender Deluxe or Fender Twin or whatever model he's using within in those Line 6 units. And they're old. I mean, they're like what, 20 years now. And I'm not sure if he's still using those or not, but you can look on YouTube on a few different videos where he talks about his live setup, and you know what? He sounds good, and that's the sound he likes. So it's really not a competition. If you have the money and the desire to buy a Fractal, then just buy a Fractal and be done with it. You know, don't be chasing your tail, trying to try all the different modelers out there and find out which one's the best, because the one that's the best is the one that makes you feel you feel good about your tone, and it's easy to use, and whatever. So that's why, not everyone plays a Marshall. Some people play Fender amps. Some people play PV amps. It's not like, it doesn't have to be a status thing in the guitar community. Though I think Facebook groups have definitely added to that phenomenon of, when you buy a product, now you're a part of this community that you can share in with a lot of other people. So that is a huge aspect. I mean, that's why people buy Kiesel guitars. I'm in the Kiesel family now. Whatever that means. It doesn't mean anything, but it just means I owe a lot of money. But when this is morbid, but when I die, no one's gonna really care. I mean, I'm a nobody. I mean, I'm just a guy who likes music, and I produce songs and demos out of my studio, and I have a YouTube channel, and I've been playing guitar for the better part of 26 years. But when I die, no one's gonna care if I played a Fractal or played a Kiesel guitar or a Reverend guitar or whatever else, right? I'm not one of those iconic people that, the Slash played a Les Paul through a Marshall JCM 800, so therefore I need that same setup in order to be cool or to be remembered. At some point, it really does not come down to the gear you use, but does the music that you make people feel that emotion, that connection with the end, with the person listening to your music. That's really what it matters. That's why DJ says the audience doesn't care what gear you're playing. They want to feel that connection from the stage, flowing into their eardrums and making them, have that warm, fuzzy feeling of like, yeah, this is cool music, or they just want to sing along because the chorus has this great hook, but who cares what kind of guitar you're playing or whatever. Now, being in a rock band, I'm not, fat by any means, but I have a dad bod going on, and most rock stars, they're a little skinnier, they're a little more well built. They wear cool jeans that are ripped, and they have earrings in their ear, and they got a full sleeve of tattoos, and I'm none of that, right? I don't have any tattoos. I've never had a piercing. I'm losing all my hair. This is why I shave my head now. And you know, if you looked at me, if you saw me on the street, you would never guess that I was a musician at all. Like, it was like, oh, he just probably works over at Home Depot somewhere. And you know, I don't look the part, even though there's a little bit of stereotyping there of like you have to look a certain way to be a musician, and you don't. But that's why you show up on stage with certain clothes on, certain shoes, certain boots, certain hats. Because if you just showed up with sandals and some jeans and a t-shirt, I mean, that's, some people pull that off and they do a really good job at it. But you know, that's why you show up with the costume on stage. You're putting on this persona of, hey, I'm a cool rock star. So therefore, I have to have 2 full Marshall stacks behind me and a pedal board full of pedals and a Gibson Les Paul and all that different kinds of stuff. So, Chris Gable's in the house. Chris Gable was my roommate many moons ago, and actually, the Epiphone is down in the house. Is playing, is hanging in the house in my bedroom, so I can pick it up and play it. Chris, this is a Kiesel Retro Solo. This is a custom guitar from California with a gold top, and it has mahogany back, maple neck and fretboard, roasted maple neck and fretboard, stainless steel frets, so I can play this D chord like the next 30 years, and those frets will never wear out, which is great. I really like that. It's getting close to being 10 o'clock. That game started about 7:30, so it's probably going to end very soon. But it's fine. So Dan is saying, I guess this is being about, get the sounds you want and do it easily. HR is great on the easily. Fractal seems to be great on the sounds you want if you like tweaking parameters. Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. I have a Boss Katana sitting right over here I need to make some videos with. I have a Supro Delta King 12 little tube amp over here. I have a Blue Guitar Amp 1 with a new Nano Cab because I wanted to have the Nano Cab to go along with the Amp 1. So that's a cool little option. So it's sort of like I have amps that I can play like live in the room or at church or wherever, but I'm definitely a digital guy. But look at Tracy Guns. He plays Headrush live, and no one's looking at him like, ew, he's a Headrush. I can't believe he would do that. Jason Roller, he's a lead guitar player for Alabama, country band that's been around for years and years. He uses a Headrush every night on tour, and no one's coming up to him and saying, hey man, your tones are whack. You know, people hear him out in the stadium or wherever he's at, and they're like, yeah, he's a great player. They don't care. I mean, obviously he sounds good, but they don't care like what he's actually using. He just happens to be using a Fractal. I mean, he just happens to be using a Headrush. So kind of messed up my my delay sound here. But it's fine. I'm going to turn that off. What amp have I chosen for the dirty amp? It's a Soldano. I had a Soldano earlier. Let's do a Princeton. Let's crank it up. Let's go to our input EQ. Let's take out some of those lows. Some of the lows. Don't drop my pick. Cool. The Prince Tone 5F2. Some kind of preamp there. So now I can switch between. Let me save this. So here's the divided by 13. Very scoopy. Then here's the rhythm. Cool. All right, guys. I'm going to go try and catch the end of this game. Maybe. If it's even available. Or if it's even still on. Sampling frequency and bit depth. I'm pretty sure it's 32-bit. And I'm not sure about sampling. It's pretty high. It's pretty high up there. Services. I'd have to look in the manual, Chris, to see what that what that's working at. But it's probably 32-bit, if anything. And maybe 48K sample rate. Maybe 96. I'm not sure. Now, I've been listening through headphones all this time, but I could take an output 3, which is why I have this block down here. I could take output 3 to a power amp and cab and get this huge sound in the room, and it sounds glorious. So it's very hard to capture that on video because you kind of need to be in the room to get the in the room sound, because otherwise you're just trying to capture it with another microphone and it's just a big filter you're trying to listen through. So it is what it is. But yeah, I've been talking through the Rode pod mic tonight. I do still have my my other mic over here, but I don't have that on. I'm just talking through this. Once again, here's the Kiesel with a reverse headstock. Reverse headstock. Whoa. Yeah. I've never owned a gold top of any kind. So this is a cool, especially like a blend between a Les Paul and a Telecaster. Because it does have the mahogany back, maple top, but then the gold top finish. And then you got the bolt-on neck. Whoops, sorry. You got the bolt-on neck with the maple neck and fretboard. And yeah. I have this Daniel Donato book that's going to teach me how to play some cool chicken picking stuff. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So, thanks guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the super chat, DJ. And if you want to help support the channel further, you can go to my website, drmcfarlandstudios.com. You can check out my Backing Tracks, Doctors Prescribed Backing Tracks course. That gives you one backing track every Friday for the full year. There's a one-time payment of $20. And if you go to the store here, page not found. Let's go to the main website. I'm so lost. Site. View site. There we are. I have a music production guide course. All things head rush. Tone sculpting, which you get. I will be going live probably Thursday or Friday of this week for the monthly live stream of me building head rush rigs. So check that out. anatomy and music course, which talks about scales, chords, arpeggios, notation, all that different stuff. And then my backing tracks course. So I'm the producer, teacher, and tone crafter right here at Nashville, Tennessee. And thank you everyone for sticking around and watching. So I am Dr. McFarland. I will see you in the next video. Keep rocking.